MONUC, the United Nations peacekeeping mission to the Democratic Republic of the Congo, is the largest and most expensive peacekeeping operation in the world, with a total of 18,600 personnel and an annual budget of $1.35 billion. The Congo has been ravaged by civil conflict and violence for over a decade, and an estimated 5.4 million people have perished since hostilities began in 1998, making it the bloodiest conflict since World War II. The conflict in the Congo was touched off largely by the inflow of over 1 million refugees from Rwanda following the 1994 genocide. Among the refugees, however, came Rwandan Hutu militia, including Interahamwe, the perpetrators of the genocide against the Tutsis in Rwanda. The Hutu militia started controlling refugee camps and eventually seized control of valuable natural resources in eastern DRC. Following this, Rwanda and Uganda invaded and backed a number of other armed factions to fight the Hutu militia, overthrow the government, and ultimately control the nation's natural resources. Although the war officially ended in 2003, MONUC is still struggling to consolidate peace and stability in the Congo. Today, while the number of armed groups has diminished dramatically, the regions in the resource-rich east remain unstable, and violence between armed groups and brutal attacks against civilians continue. The FDLR, a rebel group consisting of Rwandan Hutus, are the last significant rebel challenge to peace in the eastern provinces of North and South Kivu. However, the situation has been further complicated since the Ugandan militia, the Lord's Resistance Army, have spilled over into previously peaceful parts of the northeastern province Oriental.
The embattled ethnic Hutu rebel group, the FDLR, is terrorizing civilians through systematic looting, abduction, rape, and murder. That's according to the UN mission in the DRC, MONUC. The mission condemns these cowardly terror tactics through which the FDLR is attempting to undermine a joint DRC-Rwanda military operation to flush it out of the Congo. A UN-backed disarmament and voluntary repatriation program remains available to FDLR fighters, but most of them have so far shunned this opportunity. The FDLR's assault on civilians also seeks to frustrate an eventual restoration of Congolese state authority in northeastern DRC. In response, the mission has maintained civilian protection teams at peacekeeper bases, and round-the-clock patrols continue.
MONUC's main objective in the Congo is to oversee the transition to peace and stability through their mandated tasks of implementing and monitoring ceasefires and observing the compliance with peace agreements. Whilst most of their activities remain within the parameters of wider peacekeeping operations, MONUC's Chapter 7 mandate does authorise personnel to engage in peace enforcement activities and allows for the preemptive use of force to enforce the peace. MONUC has seen the people of the Congo through ceasefires and the transition to national elections. However, with continued instability and conflict in the eastern provinces, the mission has entered a peace enforcement phase of operations. With its Chapter 7 mandate, MONUC has a responsibility for the protection of civilians under imminent threat of physical violence, and the authority to use force in order to do so if necessary. Another of MONUC's main tasks is to facilitate the disarmament, demobilization, repatriation, resettlement and reintegration process, DDRRR, and are authorized to forcibly disarm combatants in order to ensure their participation in the DDRRR process if necessary.
What happens to those who choose not to disarm? What is our responsibility under Chapter 7?
That's a question, and pretty much we have an answer that it is the forcible disarmament.
It's forcible.
It's disarmament. Okay. So there are no two ways about it. We will ensure that they are disarmed, and the Chapter 7 will be fully used on that account.
And at the right time.
And then especially in an extended weapon-free zone, whether the intent is hostile or not, it's a weapon-free zone. So they will be disarmed. We can't accept any weapons in that. Yes.
MONUC are also mandated to support military operations undertaken by the National Armed Forces, the FARDC, in particular helping them to dismantle remaining armed groups and assisting security forces in establishing state authority and the rule of law. Since the beginning of MONUC's mission in 1999, MONUC have contributed to building peace in most parts of the country, and the security situation in the Congo has improved significantly, particularly in the Ituri region following the third phase of the disarmament, demobilisation and reintegration process. As a mission, MONUC have been successful in fulfilling crucial peacekeeping and peacemaking tasks, such as brokering local truces, monitoring ceasefires, and facilitating the disarmament, demobilisation, repatriation, resettlement and reintegration of thousands of armed combatants. 15,000 combatants were integrated into the army and more than 2,000 others demobilised in the last 6 months alone. However, MONUC have not only contributed to peacekeeping in the Congo, but have also sown the seeds for sustainable peace in the future by training local police and security forces, reintegrating refugees and IDPs, and assisting with the transition to democratic rule through the facilitation of the first democratic elections in 40 years. Furthermore, the arrest of former warlords and militia leaders Thomas Lubanga, president of the UPC, Matthew Nagajilo, former chief of staff of the FNI, Jermaine Katanga, former chief of staff of the FRPI, Bosco Ntanga, former chief of staff of the CNDP, and Laurent Nakonda, leader of the CNDP, represent a step forward towards justice and reconciliation for the people of the Congo and signify that the culture of impunity is ending. Finally, there has also been significant progress in the Kivu provinces given the agreement reached on the 23rd of March this year by the CNDP, who has, in return for key concessions, committed to ending its insurgency and having its combatants integrated into the Congolese National Armed Forces. Despite these successes, however, MONUC have failed on a number of occasions to fulfil some of the most crucial tasks under their mandate, including the protection of civilians under imminent threat of physical violence. For example, on the 5th of November 2008, when CNDP rebels attacked the town of Kiwanja, 1 mile away from a MONUC base with 100 military personnel, there was no response from MONUC. The result of this was the deaths of over 150 villagers. Other examples of this failure on MONUC's part are the events in Kisangani and Drodro in 2002, which also led to the massacres of hundreds of innocent civilians. Furthermore, the sexual misconduct of a number of MONUC troops has also been a major disappointment and been particularly damaging to the image and public perception of the UN mission in the Congo. Finally, MONUC have failed to enforce adherence to the ceasefires of 1999, 2003 and 2008, and as a result have also been unable to establish a stable security environment and promulgate peace, particularly in eastern DRC, where the FDLR and LRA issues remain unsolved. The 6,000 or more FDLR combatants and up to 3,000 LRA militia in the region still present major challenges for the consolidation of peace. Remaining rebel groups must be disarmed and demobilised if the Eastern Congo is to be stabilised. This will require coordination of efforts between MONUC and national and regional actors, and an improved and consolidated disarmament and demobilisation strategy, including specific targeting of the FDLR and LRA leaders in order to break down the command and control structures. Furthermore, restoring order and security to the east will require significant security system strengthening and ongoing political reform dedicated to improving democracy and good governance to restore the state's legitimate authority in the eastern provinces. In the meantime, putting an end to attacks against civilians will require improved civilian protection on the part of MONUC and Congolese security forces. Finally, it is clear that military solutions are inadequate to deal with the underlying political issues of the conflict, and therefore the importance of dialogue must be recognised in order to find a durable political solution which recognises the complexity and root causes of the conflict and involves all actors and parties.